This crazy guy attacked a school bus and took one of the little boys off the bus, and they put him in a bunker underground.
Oh.
And HRT deployed, and it started negotiation, and it became pretty clear he's not giving up. So they did an explosive breach they had a hatch. He had a hatch on the entrance to the bunker. They blew it off, but he put a bunch of bicycle cable locks across the opening. So when the hatch went, they didn't go. So now he's shooting at them. He's firing up, and I think they threw like 25 flashbangs on him to disorient him, and he's still shooting. And so they took wire cutters and cut him, and an agent dove into the bunker and grabbed the little boy, and two other guys drove in and killed him.
My next guest is a dear friend of mine, but he's also fairly accomplished. I mean, he was the deputy director of the FBI, responsible for rescuing over 300 hostages from terrorists around the world, led the Oklahoma City bombing investigation, Atlanta prison riots, etc. Just a few things. And then when he left, he's done quite extraordinarily since. Not only that, he shares a story with us today that he says he's never shared with anyone else. And I'm honored to be the facilitator for such story because it is really impactful and it helps us to understand the context of this extraordinary man's life. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming my dear friend, Mr. Danny Coulson, to the TeeCast.
You know, I went to TCU to become a professional musician.
What?
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah, I played the trumpet.
You played the trumpet?
I started when I was 8 years old, played all the way through college, and never touched it since.
Is that why? That makes sense, because when they say he's a blowhard, they're being complimentary.
No, they're not.
Yes.
No, they're not.
Well, yeah, so that's exactly what brought me up here, because I was in high school in Houston, and then I came up here to go to North Texas. I followed one of my buddies who's now the Leonard Skinner guitar player. We were best bandmates coming up through high school, and then
I still have my trumpet, which was the classic trumpet. That's called an English Besson trumpet.
It's probably worth something, huh?
Yeah, it's worth a lot of money. My dad found it in an old music store in Wichita Falls, and he bought it for me, and I played it from the time I was 9, I guess, till I graduated college, and I never touched it.
And so what happened at TCU? Did you went to TCU to play, but then decided not to?
I thought I wasn't very good.
You thought you weren't very good, or they thought you weren't very good?
No, I thought I wasn't very good. So, I mean, because I was around people that were really good, so you kind of self-compare.
Yeah.
And
but yeah.
Nah,
well,
I was.
It's actually interesting to hear this, because that sounds like a modern problem. You know, this is like something where people tend to compare themselves outside of their own environment more these days, just because you see so much more.
There's no doubt about it. But I wouldn't. I mean, truly, I was not very good. I'm trying to turn this damn thing off.
So you went to TCU thinking you were going to. Did you do any auditions for trumpet or music or anything?
No, yeah. I was in a lot of bands. There was a symphony orchestra here for youth, and I made that.
Oh, come on!
But there's a saying: among the blind, the one-eyed is king. I was just around a bunch of really bad people, and I was still bad.
What does that say about the TCU music program? I'm sure it's come a long way, though. I know some really great musicians that come out of TCU these days.
Yeah, a lot of
different places.
Yeah, they were good then. I just wouldn't. I don't think I was interested anymore. I think I was. I didn't know that I wanted that to be my life.
Well, that I understand, because, having been a professional musician before too, I know it's just a completely different thing. You're buying into kind of a different cultural
everything's
and financial
different. Your sleep patterns
scenario,
are different.
everything. Yeah. So
your life's different.
Well, being there then, and then saying, okay, you didn't feel like that was going to be your path. What made you switch into, your undergrad was what?
Political science.
Political science.
And
so what made you do that? Was that just out of default?
Sort of. I thought I probably want to go to law school.
Okay.
And so political science is a good way to prepare yourself for law school.
And wanting to go to law school, meaning you wanted to be an attorney?
Yes, I did at that point.
Well, what were you thinking?
I'd practice law.
What kind of law? Come on, man.
I really didn't know. I mean, when you're that age.
Well, I know, but that's
You're
what I mean. You
thinking-
have an idea, though.
No,
You got
I
to
didn't.
chase. You had no idea, as broad as that is.
I thought maybe criminal law. Then I found out that I probably didn't want to do that.
Okay.
And then I knew I wanted to go to law school, though. And I got accepted to SMU, which is a pretty good school, which shows it wasn't that good then, or they would have taken me. So I went over there, and I ended up working for a professor. I helped him write a book on civil procedure. And it was an interesting guy. Briefly, I'll talk to you about him. His name was Jan Sharmatz, and he was a Nuremberg prosecutor. He prosecuted Albert Speer.
Really?
Yeah, and he was one of my professors, and I was terrified of him. We all were terrified of him.
Well, that's old school professor too.
And he screamed at you, and he would, oh my God, if you would just sit in class and prayed he wouldn't call on you, because he would just rip your private parts off.
It makes you anxious enough to prepare.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was always ready for class. And then he hired me to help him write a book. And so we did that. And then there's a antique gun store right across from SMU Law School called Jackson Arms. He's still there. And it was probably the biggest antique gun store in the country. And between semesters, my senior year, I went over there just to look around, just to kind of unwind. Mm-hmm. Law school tests are terrible, especially if you're not a very good student there.
So, hey, what a better place to unwind than a gun shop, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, for me, maybe not for you, but for me. Okay. So I'm in there, and there was some FBI agents in there investigating a stolen gun case taken interstate. So the agent came over and started talking to me. He said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm in law school." He said, "What are you going to do after law school?" I said, "I'm going to go to the Navy," because everybody had to do something then. Mm-hmm. And he said, "I don't think so. You're going to go to the FBI." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, we'd like to have you." And so I went through the process, and that's a terrible process. It's arduous, and they interview everybody you've ever known or talked to. And matter of fact, I got a letter from Hoover, who was director, and said, "If you expect to be an FBI agent, you got to quit getting traffic tickets," because I had a number of them. And so anyway, they took me. I was shocked. I didn't think they'd take me.
Well, everybody has their ghosts. Yours just weren't as bad as others, I'm sure.
Well, I had a lot of ghosts.
Yeah.
Two of my uncles were in prison in upstate New York at the time. And, but they talked to me. "Have you ever talked to them?" I said, "I don't know if I have or not. I'm not sure." Anyway, they took me. So, and the race is on.
May incriminate myself if you talk about it. So did your uncles spend a lifetime behind bars? Or
no,
what?
I don't know. No, they were in there for, we call them direct then, car cases. They were running stolen car rings.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, at least they were in business. I mean, they had a business.
Yeah, of course. They're entrepreneurs.
Exactly. It's like women that become prostitutes. At least they got a profession.
So, and they talked to you into it, and you got in at first shot, which is also saying something. Again, you kind of undersell your musical ability, but also it takes a lot of people, oftentimes several chances,
several years
to get in.
They took me. And I was excited. I mean, I was excited to, a young man, you're getting ready to go to the FBI Academy. You have no idea what you're walking into. It was pretty horrible. So I went down to Quantico and started the adventure.
So were there any significant occurrences in your childhood or adolescence that kind of tipped you in that direction? Because not everybody would be able to be coaxed so easily into something. It's an exciting profession, but not everyone would be interested.
No, and especially now. I mean, this is
that's a different part of the conversation for sure. Yes.
It takes a lot. I've never said this publicly, but I had polio as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't walk. And I'd had some of the vaccines. There were two at the time. There was Salk, and I can't remember the other one. But anyway, I had the Salk, which is a series of shots, and I had one of them. And our doctor said that's why it wasn't as severe as it could have been. It could have been like catastrophic.
Because you had one of the series, but then contracted it after that, or because of that?
No, well, who knows? I came down with it after that. Oh, the other one was called Sabin. That was the one that was on a sugar cube, and you just gave it to you and took it. So I had to go through rehab.
Wow.
And very intensive rehab.
How old were you?
14.
Oh, wow. That's an impactful time
Yeah.
to get that too.
Yeah. And so it's, I had a really good physical therapist who was a young woman who was, I hated her because she was so mean. She was in the medical arts building downtown Fort Worth. And I would go down and see her, and she made me walk up to her office, which is 4 flights up. She was tough. And so I started training. I bought a set of Joe Weider weights. You don't even remember that, do you?
Oh, I do. I remember old Joe Weider too, big old mustache.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I bought a set of that and started lifting weights. I've been lifting weights since I was 14. And that helped me later, especially in the HRT. And just started working out a lot. And then before I could really got very mobile, I used to sit in a chair in the backyard, and my dad would put clothespins on my mother's clothesline. And I'd shoot them off with my Daisy BB gun.
Hey,
and
spin them.
I spent hours doing that. And I can't do much good in life. I can really shoot. So I think that was kind of important because I was I became a firearms instructor. I was on the sniper team of the FBI. So I think that kind of set the tone. And I think the idea of a lifestyle change where you work out all the time, I think that helped.
Yeah.
In
that
the
could have been
business I was in.
Hidden blessing too.
Oh, yeah. I still do. I lifted weights yesterday.
I know. I've told people about you that you bring your TRX and to your hotel rooms and everything. So the guy's nuts.
My TRX has been around the world twice, literally. They come in a little bag, and it's literally been around the world twice.
Yeah.
I took it all over the world.
Those are some crazy workouts, but everybody, all these hotels have a weight room now and treadmills and everything else.
Oh, yeah, they do. But some of them are good and some are bad. The TRX, I like it because it works your core and it works everything. And it's hard stuff. They have a thing called the 40-40 challenge. It's insane. You have to do 40 atomic push-ups and then 40 rows. And I did that when I was probably 78 or 78, something like that. It took me 6 months where I could accomplish that. It was horrible. You work out, when you're doing push-ups, you can do 4 and then you push hard and do 5, or you can do 30 and push hard and do 31. That's the way push-ups are. You can just gut it out. Oh, no.
When you're done, you're done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would do these atomic
different
push-ups and then just collapse on the floor and just, I'd do my rows. And then one day I got up, went up to my little gym in my house, and I felt terrible. I just felt awful. I was coming down with allergies and didn't feel good. So I went out, I started doing them, and holy crap, I was at 37. I did 40 and then fell on the floor and laid there for 20 minutes because it just taps you.
Are you allowed a break that long before you do the next?
Oh, yeah. You have to stay down. You have to stay down for a while. And then I did the rows, and they were easy for me. So, yeah, I finally did it. It's one of my milestones, I guess.
So when you went through the FBI Academy, one of the things that I know, and we'll talk a little bit about how law enforcement in general has changed, and this is just a barely broaching the topic, but when you went in, was there a physical fitness requirement, I assume? So was it just kind of a standardized, this is before some of the clinical tests, was it still push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that?
Yeah, pull-ups, big, fast bug on pull-ups. That's why I have a brand new shoulder made out of titanium. I did too many pull-ups. But yeah, a lot of pull-ups. You had to do pull-ups where you could eat. You had to do pull-ups where you could go to the range. They push you hard on being able to control your own body weight.
Was the prerequisite to get in? Was there a physical fitness requirement?
I had to do that.
Do you remember what it was?
I think you had to do 5 pull-ups and something like 30 push-ups, but that was easy for me. That was not hard.
Okay.
And I forgot some number of setups. You had to run a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It was. I think given the nature of our society today, you probably find 1 in 100 can do that now. That's what the military is finding. They can't get anybody past a PT.
I know. Well, and we have a PT test, at our security
firm. I know you do, yeah.
So, I see a lot of that too. But I also see a lot of the police departments lowering standards or altering standards, so to speak. And I don't know federally if they're doing the same thing.
No, I don't think so. No, theirs is still pretty high.
But it's difficult to get people in, and they just think of if we can plug in the integrity piece and like get them in shape, then I think they're coming up with different things that they can qualify as physically
That's a good
fit.
observation, Tegan, but I don't believe in that. I ran selection for the FBI's hostage rescue team. That's horrible. I took it, and it's really hard. And I'd have guys come back to the academy wanting to be on this, which is a pretty elite unit. There's only 3 of us. It's only SEAL Team 6, Delta, and HRT. That's the only counter-terrorist teams we have in our country. And they would come back and they would like, what are you doing here? And I'd go see them. I said, I'm going to send you home tomorrow. You better step it up. One day for Generation 2, I'm kind of getting off a little bit.
No, it's fine. No. Yeah.
For Gen 2, I went out the morning of selection and ran the O course, and I did okay. And then the candidates came out and they ran it, and I bet over half of them. And because everybody knows that selection course is horrible. And so they're trying to pace themselves. They don't want to work themselves into exhaustion on the first day.
Yep.
So they were pacing themselves. So I got all the candidates and I put them on a bleacher there at the academy, right by the O course. And I sent all the operators raised. I said, okay, boys, I'm looking for men that'll run into a room and shoot a terrorist in the chest. So far, I don't see them here. I said, I'm not trying out for fucking Ranger Rick camp. You're trying out for the hostage rescue team. Now step it up.
Yep.
Walked away. Man, the rest of the time they were burning. Sometimes you'd have to motivate them. And I'm not of the kinder, gentler FBI at all.
Well, I totally understand that. And I think there should be, and I think there still is a difference. There's a discrepancy between saying you can be a police officer or an agent versus you can be in a special forces unit or a SWAT team or whatever.
There is difference.
I do know that a lot of those qualifications within at least the major metro PDs and stuff are a lot more tumultuous, and certainly at the level that you're talking about, which is the FBI hostage rescue team, for those that we have not gotten to that part yet. But an elite counter-terrorist unit is going to be a different
I've done some
level.
work with the Fort Worth PD. They have, I think, one of the top SWAT teams in the country.
Yeah.
Their PT is tough.
Yeah.
I helped a guy get into the Fort Worth Police Academy. He was one of my wife's students, and he's a stud. And I think he was a stud among people who weren't so studly. Now, he could pass anything. Really good kid, really smart. Played football in college and wrestled, and he's a tough guy.
Yeah.
But I do think I think Dallas PD has a great SWAT team. I've worked with them a lot too.
Yep, me too.
Hey, excuse me. And I think we're doing a disservice to our youth by saying, well, we'll accommodate you. And my position is, you're joining me. I'm not joining you.
Right.
And if you can't do it, I don't want you around.
Yeah.
My son's a policeman, or just retired as a policeman.
Did he really? Okay, good.
Yeah, he just retired. He retired. Him and his dog. He retired when his dog had retired.
Out of Oregon too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Out of all places.
So, I mean, he talks to me about the quality of policemen. They're getting out there, and it's like, I'm glad he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And
that's my point. When you start doing something more significant.
Yeah.
And I know not everybody has to be a gym rat.
Oh, no.
So that's why if you're doing an entry level thing, which I was asking about the FBI requirements and, push-ups and sit-ups, and you have to be in good shape, but you don't have to be a gym rat, because they also want you to be able to shoot. They want you to be able to think. They want you to be able to discern and fitting into culture. Of course, all of that's important. So you can't be a 10 on all those things necessarily, but you start going into those bigger, more important units where shooting is quite possible more often every time you go to work and things like that. You've got to work on all those other things. So, and that's the perfect example, is that when your son left, he's just thinking, and I was in the same boat. We would, you'd gather a team and you're going to go do a dynamic entry, and you've got 8 folks and 2 perimeter folks. And you're like, I'm going to make you the front of the stick because I don't want you behind me.
I always had them wait in the car and run the radio. that was what I didn't want them around.
Yeah. It's like, hey, if you're going to shoot something, just, shoot that door if you have to, I suppose. But Yeah, I mean, there's always that because you've got only so many people in so many units. The more elite you get,
Oh, yeah.
the more significant the teams are going to be. So you leverage a SWAT team. You already know there is a weak link, of course, on every team. Somebody's weaker than the next, but
somebody is not as good as everybody else.
Right.
But still, on the
weakest
HRT,
link,
they're still pretty damn good.
Right. The weakest link is still better than us, which is the point.
A Delta Force or Army Rangers or I think the guys that I admire the most are these P jumpers, the Air Force guys.
Yeah.
They're some of the biggest studs I've ever seen in my entire life.
Really?
They're incredible. I've used them. I've worked with them. They're pretty manly.
So what do you think are, I was curious. So first, maybe just without spending a ton of time on explain what the HRT is and how you ended up becoming in charge and forming it and stuff like that also, so that we can then discuss some of the missions then versus now, because I'm really curious to get into some of the disparity between how things were done and how things are done now.
Okay, that's pretty easy. There was a debate in the government about what would we do if there was a terrorist action in the United States. A level 3 or level 4 high risk automatic weapons, hand grenades, and that kind of stuff with hostages. So the FBI and the Department of Defense put on some exercises at the academy. I'll try to go quickly through this. The White House came and they watched the WFO SWAT team do an exercise. They watched the Delta Force do an exercise. And one is law enforcement, one's not. I think you know that you can't use the military in a law enforcement capacity because of posse comitatus, which were laws passed after the Civil War. So a White House rep went to the director and said, well, we don't want the military to do it. You're going to do it. I suggest you might want to get ready for it. So he picked a man named John Byron Hodis, who, interesting guy, big gym rat, as you mentioned earlier, big workout guy. He had a law degree from Duke. He had a master's in law from Harvard and a doctorate in law from Yale. Super smart guy. He got the task to write the concept paper, and he did it. And then they had a selection committee, and they picked me to do it. They picked me to create it. And
at what rank were you at the time that
it would be like a colonel in the military. We call them unit chiefs.
Okay.
It'd be a colonel rank, and that's what at that time all the CT units were commanded by colonels. So that's what was my rank. It was called assistant special agent in charge, and they gave me the task to do it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Although they gave me everything I wanted. It was amazing. William Webster was the director. He liked me because we had an association. And he, when I went to deploy to go do it, he said, I want the best counter-terrorist team in the world. I expect you to give it to me. And I said, I can do that if you help me, because a lot of people are not going to want to help me. A lot of people are going to fight me. And there were a lot of wars. The HRT had a budget of 0. We had no money.
Oh, gosh.
And because you have to go through the congressional process to do that. So I'm spending a lot of money. You can imagine. I mean, the radios cost more than downtown Fort Worth. I mean, because they were privacy radios, so nobody could monitor. And we had the best weapons in the world. We had MP5 submachine guns made by H&K. We had, explosive breaching. We had body armor and diversionary devices, hand grenades. All these things you got to buy. Then you got to
starting from nothing.
From zero, absolute zero. I mean, I had and then when I picked the team, I ran the selection, and that was the problem.
So what was the selection process, and why was it a problem?
It was horrible. Probably a mark would be if you can't do at least 100 push-ups and probably 35 pull-ups, you're not going to make it. Now, that wasn't the criteria. I'm just trying to give you a mark to say if you can't do it. Oh, and swimming.
That's a starting point.
Yeah. Swimming was the hardest thing for me. That was really hard. Every day we swam 2 miles in our gear, in our clothes. Yeah. And that was hard. That was difficult for me.
Was that something that you developed ahead of time and then learned?
No, here's where it went. The academy was very helpful in part. And there were some really good guys at the academy in a unit called SOARS. and they developed the selection course. Then I knocked some stuff out because I didn't like some of it. So they developed it, and I approved it, and then we did it. And swimming, we lost more guys from swimming failures than anything.
I'm sure. I mean, first of all, I'm looking at it like when I think FBI, they're recruiting people like you who have a law degree or finance or things like that. So you're not dealing with people that are military trained folks in the first place.
No, you're not. You're really not. I'll tell you something else too, and hope this is not sensitive. The problem we had was Afro-Americans passing the swimming test because of the culture. They don't have an opportunity to go do a lot of swimming unless they're from Nigeria, where they swim like fish over there. But it's hard for them.
Yeah.
Probably it was harder for me because I just can't swim.
And it's not that they couldn't swim. There was a cultural
phobia.
They
never done it before.
A cultural phobia.
And they never done it. And, it's the selection course is horrible. I mean, it tests every phobia you've ever had. One of the things we did with them, we put them in a blacked out diving mask, put them in the pool, just have to stay there until we tell you to come out. So you can't swim. You're in a swimming pool, a big ass swimming pool, and you're trying to orient yourself. And some people got sick and threw up in the water.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because you're disoriented. You know which way's up and which way's down. Claustrophobia, we tested for that. That was easier for me. It didn't bother me at all. But we tested them for phobias for height. They have to do a lot of climbing on the obstacle course at the academy, which are for the Marines. That's hard. I mean, to climb those stairway to heaven and those things.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly hard for me. Because I'm good with heights. It didn't bother me that much.
That seems like most of it. Because otherwise, stairs are stairs are stairs. You're in great shape. You can run stairs. But you put stairs that are 3 feet wide and go straight up in the air.
How about they're 5.5 feet apart, where you got to jump up and grab it and pull yourself up.
Oh gosh, okay.
Up a tower. So that was hard. That was one of the harder things, I guess. But and the big thing, Tegan, is that how do they perform as a team? Because this is a team, and it's probably one of the most intense teams in our country. I'm one of the three, at least. And some guys didn't get it. And when they go to a course, the instructors, first of all, they weren't allowed to talk to us. They couldn't say a word to us. First of all, I don't want to talk to them. And our instructors who would tell them, this is a team event, and it'd be a 5-man team, and you have to get yourself through it. Well, some guys would do that. I mean, one guy named Don Glasser, who was a Navy SEAL, fleet heavyweight boxing champ. He was a stud, best shape of anybody, one of the best I've ever seen. And he got his people through the course because there's a lot of climbing and there's,
he's also a SEAL, so he's used to teamwork.
He's used to teamwork, yeah. He did really well. Another guy in the same event was equally as good a shape, and he ran off and left the team.
So that was going to be my next question, because you're talking about taking elite athletes and skilled people that can get beyond adversity.
Yes.
Which through their entire lives, they've been a standout and compete to be the number one.
Right.
And now you're trying to completely shift their mindset. So how do you take somebody that's at that kind of a mindset that says, I'm the dominant athlete, I always have been, I've made it to this grandiose level, and now I'm responsible for the lowest common denominator? Like, how did you teach that to them?
They didn't learn it. They didn't get on the team. They failed. The ones that ran off and left their team didn't help. Gone. Like, their missions are super hard. They do crazy hard things. And I'm going to give you an example. Gen 2, one of our operators had been the first alternate on the U.S. decathlon team. He was an elite athlete, and he did well. He was a team player. He could do all the things we do, all the climbing, all the height work. He could fast rope out of a helicopter, which is very dangerous. We've killed more people fast roping than we have in combat.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. And he did really, really well and made it. He once you pass selection, you go to knots, and you stay there 6 months. And that's where you can do your training and learn your skill sets. And I'm in my office one day, and there's a knock on the door, and he comes in with his team leader. and he's just ashen. And I said, "What's going on?" He couldn't even talk to me. His team leader said he can't rappel off the dorm. One of the things you have to do is learn to rappel, which you have to.
Mhm.
So I said, "What do you mean you can't rappel?" I said, "You can't commit suicide rappelling. If you let go, somebody's going to hold you.
Yeah.
You belay them." And he said, "I don't know. When I get to that wall, I can't go over it." I said, "Well, here's the deal. Go do it or pack your stuff up and leave. Because I can't be wondering as a commander. I'm not very smart, so I can't remember who can rappel and who can't. And frankly, I don't care."
Yeah. When the time comes, you got to either do it or not. There's no time to delay, right?
Exactly. So came back 45 minutes later, said, "I can't do it. I cannot do it."
Wow.
I said, "Okay, here's the deal. Here's the way I feel about it. Better you die today than not do this. Because the rest of your career, you're coming back here. And you're going to look at that dormitory and you're saying, everybody, I mean, when you go through selection for the HRT, it's monumental. And you really want to pass because you want to be a part of that, part of the mystique and part of the adventure."
Yeah.
And I said, "Get in my car." So I went and I got my rappelling gear out of my kit bag. And so I jocked up and we went.
You're scaring the crap out of him already. That ride's got to be
He was dying. So we go over to the dorm. We ride the elevator up and he's like, just really nervous. So we get up there and the team had already put another line down. And so I roped him into his bottle. You know how to rappel with a bottle opener thing. So I roped him in. I said, "Get on the ledge." And he gets on the ledge and I get behind him and I take his feet and push him off. So he's hanging, 12 stories above the ground. And I'm hanging with him. And I said, "Stand up." And he stood up and he's like really nervous. So when you rappel, you announce "on rappel." And the guy below says "on belay." That way you know you're synchronized.
Yes.
Not it's kind of a hard landing.
Yeah.
So he announced and he kind of went "on rappel." So I smacked him in the face and just hit him right across the forehead. And I said, "Let's go." So he went down. I said, we went back up and then did the same thing, get up there. And I said, "Again, this time you're going to bound out because we're going to rappel. You push out, kick back,
right,
and land with your feet, hopefully against the building."
Right.
So he did it like 5 times. And we got to the bottom of the 5th time. I said, "I trust I won't have to do this again." He said, "No, sir, I got it." And I said, "I know you do." So the XO came over to me and said, "Better you die today than not do this." I said, "I really believe that, but here's the deal. We cannot let each other fail. That's what it's all about."
Yeah.
That was why I took him, because another commander would have taken him, probably any of us would have, but we don't have the luxury of failure because the reputation of our country is riding on our shoulders and the life and death of hostages is riding on our shoulders. So it was a great example. The team loved it. They thought it was awesome.
But you saw a particular, there was something about him though that struck you, because there's plenty of people that do fail and you allow them to fail. This guy must have really had.
Yes, that's true, except not many people fail during knots. Because by the time you get to new operator training, you pretty much have weeded out the ones that can't do it.
Understood.
Although we had another guy, we did a mission where we had to go through tunnels underneath a building to get to the bottom of a building to go up and rescue hostages. He about crapped out in there. He had claustrophobia. We didn't know it.
Oh.
And actually, one of my Navy SEALs took him by the hand, led him through the tunnel. And he got up. He did okay. He did fine. He operated. Once he was so pissed off that he went right through the mission and did it. So we learned a lot in Gen 1, Gen 2 about who can pass and who can't. So there's not much that gets by them now. Matter of fact, I went back for selection about a year ago. It's hard.
Still intense. I'm sure it is, but still elite. That's what sets it apart. And that's what makes it a little more difficult at every level, though, because you have fewer and fewer people to pick from. If the standards at the bottom are lower, then you're consistently messing with the pool of people to pull from.
Let me make it even harder for you. It's so hard you can't get people to try out for it.
Oh, gosh.
You ever think about that?
I hadn't, because, I mean, it seems like everybody would want that job. It seems like if you were in that, you're already an agent and everything. Well, not that everybody could. That's my point.
Yeah,
You'd
exactly.
think like everyone would like, yeah, I want to gear up and go do all this action-packed stuff.
Yeah,
but
I want to be on
most
TV.
people cannot. Yeah, then you pick the 1% and you move on,
Yeah.
right? But now people don't want to.
The commander of GIGN, which is a German counter-terrorist team who I worked with, was named a guy named Ulrich Begner. He was their colonel. It's the West German border guard, and I went over and trained with him for a while. After the team was stood up, he came over to meet with the director, and he told him about how much help I was going to need from the director, because all these underlings were going to try to be screwing with us. And here's what part of the reason for it. None of those guys that are high-ranking officials in the FBI could ever go through selection and pass. So there's a resentment there to the things we do.
I get that. That's why I was asking too. If you, once it was set up, if you made sure that you worked yourself up to standard to where you were leading from the front. Physical.
Yeah, you got to be the first one, last one to leave, first one in, that kind of thing. But you have to have unbelievable support from the very top. I had a guy who wanted to go through selection, and his assistant director wouldn't let him because he's one of the top explosive experts in the world. And I needed an explosive expert to help me do breaching. I needed to blow the door down or blow the wall down. So I needed him desperately. So his assistant director said no, and he was a friend of mine. I said, well, I'm going to go to the director. He said, I knew you would. So I went to Webster. Webster said, you got him. I mean, you just have to do things like that. And when you do it, you create some enemies.
Yeah, it wasn't something you would typically do unless it was that important, no. I assume, right?
Well, they weren't going to send them to rescue a hostage. They're going to send me. And so there's some jealousy there. And you see it in the military. You know, what do they call people who aren't airborne? They call them straight legs because they never had to bend their legs when they hit the ground. Yeah. So it's kind of that thing. But he pulled a lot of things out. There was another guy who was a top espionage FBI agent in the world. Guy was a stud, good guy. Still friends with Derry Minute. He wanted to go through selection. His assistant director wouldn't let him. So tried him a little self up to see the director. Said, you got him. So I had great support.
That's fantastic.
At least it was kind of support in the middle and the top. And then the middle echelons, not so much. But I got a great opportunity. I got to work with 50 of the best top people in the FBI I could ever know. And to this day, they've done things that nobody's done since then. They pulled off stuff.
And so maybe I haven't been on these hostage rescue missions all over the world. So back in the 70s, it seemed, this is just my perception, having lived through a period of time where it seemed like there was turmoil overseas.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden people were like, hey, what happened to the SEAL team? And then all of a sudden somebody's assassinated and they're coming up wet.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm curious now. I understand the value in that. And I think it's really valuable. And sometimes you wish we would go back to it. But I also understand politically what a mess it could also be, obviously. Did you function? Because it seemed like you were in a transitional period where that was sort of the accepted thing, but was obviously graduating into the era where everybody kind of knows everything and everybody finger screws everything at every level, which restricts your ability to go do dark ops. Can you talk about the differences?
Yeah, I can. That's a really good question. You got to remember that Europe was way ahead of us on creating counter-terrorist teams because they had a problem. You had the British SAS, which I still think probably maybe the best. You had GIGN, which is a French team. You had GSG-9, which is a German team. And actually, GSG-9 came to the academy for us to teach them how to shoot, and so did the French. They all came to us for firearms. I think the Bureau still is the best in the world at teaching firearms. And so they were stood up. So when our teams came into being, Charlie Beckwith, who commanded Delta, he went back over there and went through the SAS stuff. He also went to see GIGN and GSG-9. And so it was kind of one hand washing the other. And that helped a lot, helped me too. When I started working with those other teams, they were very helpful to me. Actually, the French, which I think will surprise you, they were one of the best. They really helped me a lot. The SAS helped a great deal. And the French did too. They were all just opened their doors.
Well, that's smart. That's smart. I mean, you're talking about working with the Allies anyway. You may as well.
Well, you might as well. And
Put your minds
also,
together.
we had a terrorist operation against a group that had really sophisticated gear. They had night vision and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I had night vision. I didn't have thermal. Thermal is much better. So I called Michael Rose, who was the commander of the SAS, and said, "Can I borrow some of your thermal?" And he said, "It'll be on a plane tomorrow. The only thing I need is I want a brief on your op." Okay. And we were successful. The thermal made our op and kept us alive. And so there's a back channel relationship between these other teams.
Okay.
I could get things done in France that our liaison people couldn't because I knew their operators.
By somewhat subcontracting, so to speak, where they would do the mission, or they would allow you to come work?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I will tell you, one of the things that the Germans especially were interested in were our neo-Nazi investigations here in the United States.
Mhm.
Because that was taken off then. This was before McVeigh and the bombing in Oklahoma and things like that. So they were always interested in what we were doing with the ultra far right.
Yeah.
And they helped them and we helped us. And sometimes it wasn't official, but it worked.
So what could you talk about on the record, off the record, what an operation looked like, how you were dispatched, who knew?
Oh, okay.
And once it was successful, looking into, since you still have contact with all of these guys, are there struggles to do things with the same anonymity now?
Well, we did a lot of things that nobody really ever knew about.
Right. I mean, that's what I'd like to know about now.
They don't know about it now. So we won't talk about it.
Come on.
We won't.
That's why I say on the record, off the record. Do the Marcinko crap. Just, this never happened. But I'll give you a scenario where something might be similar to something that was accomplished. I don't need to know details.
I can tell you a little bit about that.
Okay.
Because we have these relationships with other teams, and sometimes our expertise is a little better in certain areas, we'll go do them with them as them. And so we don't know the HRT is ever there, SEAL team's there. So
okay.
You just go in. A lot of times when we have a big op, they want to come over and be with us. They want to participate in it. And that happens. That's
okay.
Very helpful. I might give you an example. There was a terrorist group, neo-Nazi group in Arkansas. They had law rockets, claymore mines, automatic weapons, hand grenades, night vision gear, and they trained all the time. They were really good. And I got a call from the deputy director, Lee Caldwell. He said, "Come see me." So, I mean, FBI headquarters is a suit and tie operation, as you might guess.
Right.
And I was not in a suit and tie. I came up in a pair of jeans and cowboy boots and walked into the deputy director's office, and "I got a job for you." And he gives it to me. And he said, they've got the same thing I just explained to you, law rockets. They're well trained. They have night vision gear. They have claymore mines, and I mean, all this stuff. And I'm just taking notes. I said, "Okay." I say, can I deploy?" He said, "You didn't say, oh shit." I said, "You don't pay me to say, oh shit. You pay me to go do it."
Yeah.
And when I go brief the team, they're not going to say, oh shit either. They're just going to get ready and go do it.
Yeah. It's what you do.
That's what we do for a living.
You do. Yeah.
And he said, "Coulson, I'm not so sure you have much humility." And he said,
well, some things never change, right?
Well, true. And then he said, "I'm not so sure you need much." I said, "You don't pay me to have humility. You tell me to do these jobs and you give me these things to do it. We're going to go do it." And it's interesting. When I went back to the academy, I drove right down there and called the team in. I told them, they just were taking notes. I mean, nobody went, okay. I mean, it wasn't like, oh crap, they've got night vision. How are we going to get in there? That never came up. That just, we have to plan for it. I appointed an assault team leader, one of my best team leaders. He planned the whole op, and then we did an advance, and we went and got ready for it. I took a recon team inside the compound. We went actually inside their compound so we could make notes and figure out where we're going to breach and how we're going to do things.
And then for some of the novices that watch the show too, I mean, we're not we're not dealing with experts in the field too. So a reconnaissance
I'm
mission is
sorry.
essentially
I'm
that.
sorry.
I mean,
we did a reconnaissance.
Yeah. Whereas you're just
when you have
learning what
something that big, because they had 100 hostages too. I mean, it was a big deal. You have to put boots on the ground, and the commander's got to go. You got to know, first of all, you got to know that what they're telling you is accurate. You got to know what they're telling they can do. They can actually do it. And I knew what they could do and knew what they couldn't do.
Right.
So we put together a five-man team, and we went into the compound, went actually inside the compound, and made our notes and took our pictures and things. And
how'd you get in that case? What were you?
We just patrolled in. We'd using our stuff.
Okay.
Using night vision.
Yeah, because I mean, they're not actively out with night vision at all hours. That's just what they used to train.
They were patrolling. They were looking for us. Yeah, they were. They knew we were coming.
Interesting.
So we just patrolled around, and then the assistant director, helped me big time. We're in a planning meeting in a hotel one night. Knock on the door, and this really attractive blonde comes in and said, "I'm looking for Danny Coulson." That's me. So
Bark.
she said, Buck Revell sent me. We're with Night Stalker. He said he's authorized you to use that asset on this job. Night Stalker was a Mitsubishi airplane that flew up about 7,000 feet and had thermal. You could see everything on the ground for miles around. And she was the operator. She
old
wasn't the
school
pilot.
Drone.
Huh?
An old school drone almost.
With people on it,
yeah.
But better. I mean, they were unbelievable. They gave me a tour of it while we were there, and it was like, oh my God, this is going to help me a lot. So when we launched the operation, we went in, they were up guiding us. And she would tell me, she would say, her name was Grits. She'd say, Doc, you got a unit coming right to you. You're at your zero. And so we'd go around them. We'd go like this, and we'd go around and come out the other side. So she vectored me in.
Beautiful.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I'll tell you how good she is. We were chasing a guy one night in the woods, and we're right on him, and we're getting closer and closer and closer. And she's directed us in. He's right in front of you. And then we got to a lake, and I can't find him. I said, Grits, I don't see him. She said, reach into the water. He's under the water, because she could see him underwater. Because his heat was different temperature than the water. So,
it seems like it would show up even more in the water.
It does. Yeah, it's pretty good. So she saved our bacon. And we got in and trapped these guys, and we played with them for about 5 days, and they all gave up and came out, all surrendered. They got tired of talking to me.
That'll make them surrender.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we know your weakness, too. Danny Coulson, please. Yes, ma'am. That's the assassination plot right there for Danny Coulson.
That's exactly it.
Okay, and so now do you think it's a lot more difficult to either get a green light or is there more red tape? I know there's always been red tape, but...
there wasn't for me. It went right from me to the assistant director, and he never told me no, ever. He let me do what I wanted. I mean, at this standoff, the commander of their operation came out. And I talked to him, let him go back in. And I got a call from some supervisor headquarters. Said, why didn't you arrest him? I said, why don't you go shit in your hat? I'm doing this. You're not. And he was my superior. But, sometimes they kind of tend to put crazier people in these positions that aren't caring about career much.
Everybody has their own objectives. And as you know, now, certainly, it's a lot more cumbersome to be in charge of people who are doing crazy, wacky stuff like that.
Oh, it's hard.
And knowing that the level of accountability is pretty extraordinary. I mean, that's something I never appreciated either until I was in charge of people. It's like, wow, I used to run and gun all the time, and just get pissed off when people would try to, get their hands and want to know what I'm doing all the time.
Exactly.
But I understand the importance.
That's a great observation. You have to have people above you that know you and know you're not crazy. I mean, a little bit crazy, but you're not stupid.
Right.
And we had that. I think they're pretty, I think it's still the same.
Okay.
The HRT's record is really good. And they do crazy things that most people say, I don't want to do that. And they're successful because they train every day they're at work. They shoot their guns almost every day of their life. Yeah. And they train on close quarter battle and explosive breaching and all these disciplines they have. So it's not like it's not like they're an unknown entity. When I got it, we were a total unknown entity. Nobody knew who the heck we were. And now I think the record that we started and the record that they made even better gives them so much credibility. They did the current team did a operation. You might have read about it. This crazy guy attacked a school bus and took one of the little boys off the bus, and they put him in a bunker underground.
Oh, wow.
And HRT deployed and it started negotiation. And it became pretty clear he's not giving up. So they did an explosive breach they had a hatch. He had a hatch on the entrance of the bunker. They blew it off, but he put a bunch of bicycle cable locks across the opening. So when the hatch went, they didn't go. So now he's shooting at them. He's firing up. And they had to, I think they threw like 25 flashbangs on him to disorient him, and he's still shooting. And so they took wire cutters and cut him, and an agent dove into the bunker and grabbed the little boy, and two other guys drove in and killed him. That's pretty high tech.
Yeah. And that is, again, there's only so much you can do, and you have to have the person that's willing to, we've had a situation like that where a dude was in the attic. And he's in the attic, he's armed. There's got to be a dude that goes in there first. And the first thing that goes in is your noggin. You just got to be the one to do that.
Remember what I said to you earlier? You can't let each other fail.
Yeah.
You cannot fail.
Right.
That cannot happen. Other countries happens all the time. I did a TV show on a failed mission in the Philippines. And they just screwed it up. They were just terrible. I mean, the three of us could have done the mission pretty easy. And they were terrible. And you could. But you don't have that. You don't have the luxury of failure. Yeah. And that young man, that operator, he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom for that.
Well, he should.
He should. At least.
It's unappreciable too. I mean, and I know a lot of guys like that don't get credit when you're doing missions like that. You didn't see that guy on the news.
No, you didn't.
So that's the whole point. I mean, it's an admirable profession. It's you
don't take credit.
And
not like some of these. Not like the man who shot Osama bin Laden. That bothers me. Big time.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Navy SEALs. I think they're a blessing to our country. And I had several on the team with me, and they were superb people. And I hate to see one guy do that. That bothers me a lot.
Because they're so discreet otherwise, even after the fact.
Yeah, and the Navy says you didn't do it. So, what's this all about?
That's interesting. Well, you knew Marcinko, so there's questions abound, whether the Navy says it or not. Sometimes you still have questions, right?
Oh, well, Dick Marcinko was the founding commander of SEAL Team 6. We were good friends.
Yeah.
We did ops together.
Yeah.
And I may be a little crazy. He's major crazy. He just passed away last night.
I know. Yeah. It's been 3 years or so now.
Yeah, he's a good man.
Yeah, because I was wanting to hit you up to get an introduction to the guy because
that's right.
He
and I were close friends. He came to my house for dinner a lot, and he was just so outrageous that I had to send my son back to bed so he wouldn't hear some of his stories. Who's now a policeman, but Marcinko he's quite a guy.
That's awesome. So obviously, you moved onward and upward in terms of career trajectory, and you worked with Oklahoma City and all that kind of stuff, and one of the more interesting aspects of some of the things you did, and we've talked about OKC and all those things,
right?
The prison riots you've done. Did you work the Atlanta prison riots?
I was a commander there.
Okay. So I know that we've gone into great detail on those. We don't have to go rehash necessarily all those details, but notably you have a friend, which I know you. So this is why this is even more remarkable because you're you. You like shoot the bad guys. That's it. You go home and you have a friend that is one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
That is a friend. You want to tell me how that came about?
Yeah. At the operation we did against the Covenant Sword and Arm of the Lord, one of the terrorists, the second in command was a man named Kerry Noble. And he's the first guy that came out when we told him to come out. And I'd never seen anybody so frightened in my entire life. He was terrified. And he came out and met with me and he said, "Are you Delta?" I said, "No." He said, "You look like Delta." I said, "Delta thinks you look like Delta too."
I'm Alpha.
Exactly. So anyway, make a long story short, we had him trapped in there and they finally surrendered. They came out and he went to prison for a number of years. And he
For what specifically?
Sedition, planning to assassinate the United States attorney in Arkansas and a bunch of stuff. They were going to kill judges, and they were a lot of conspiracy charges. So he goes to prison, and in the meantime, he found Jesus. He found a religion, and he converted away from that nonsense. And I'd just taken over the division in Dallas. I was new commander in Dallas, and I got a call from one day through my secretary. He said, she said, Kerry Noble's on the phone. I thought he was calling me from prison. And so he said, Danny, this is Kerry. I said, well, Kerry, are you out of jail? He said, I am. He said, I'd like to meet with you. I said, I bet you would. I said, okay.
That's
what do you want to do?
Water.
So he wanted me to meet him. So I grabbed my Browning high power, which is our weapon, and I put a hand grenade in each pocket and took my MP5 and I went up and met him. And we took my deputy and we talked probably for a couple hours. And he had a bunch of pictures of his compound, which I had them anyway, but he showed them to me and we talked. And at the end of
you
this,
had him post compound function.
Oh, yeah, I had it.
Right?
Yeah, I had it before he was there. Anyway, I said, well, I had to go. So I said, I'm glad I didn't kill you. He said, I'm glad I didn't kill you too. So make a long story.
The end of Hell or High Water, actually, isn't it?
Yes.
The movie.
Yeah. So he became a friend of my family. He'd come to my house for dinner, went to my daughter's wedding, went to my daughter's graduation. We had a book signing party at my house one night, and I invited him to that. For
your book?
Yeah.
Okay.
No Heroes. And there was a young female lawyer there, and she sees him standing in the kitchen, and she said, yeah, I am Bubba, whoever her name was, I don't remember now. And he said, well, I'm Kerry Noble. She said, well, how do you know Danny? He said, well, he put me in jail. And so she said, what'd you do? He said, I was a terrorist. And so, I mean, how do you answer that? She kind of rolled her eyes, and she walked over to my wife and said, the guy over there, the big, ugly guy with red hair? David said, yes, Danny put him in jail. He's a terrorist. So
I thought he was so facetious.
Yeah. So we stayed friends forever. He just recently passed away. Recently, HBO did a documentary on it, and one of the features was the fact that he was a bad guy. I was good. We became friends, and they filmed it at my house with him, with me.
That's beautiful. Dinner. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's coming out. Actually, that's
on the
coming out
16th of next month. Yeah. We went to, Debbie and I and the kids went to a private showing in Oklahoma City 2 weeks ago. And it's good. I've watched the documentary is good. It's not happy. It's about the bombing in Oklahoma, and it shows the people that were injured, and it talks about how Kerry Noble's group had planned to do it, and then we took them out, and then they, some guys came along and did it. So it's a kind of moving thing. I took my grandchildren because they don't know who I am. Yeah. They have no clue who I am or what I've done.
Yeah.
And so we also went to see the Oklahoma City Bombing Museum.
Yep. There's a big old gigantic Danny Coulson in that sucker in there.
Yeah. Well, my youngest granddaughter, Marlo Lily, said, Papa, that's you. I said, yeah, it was me. And so that was kind of a fun day.
That makes it worth it more than anything, right?
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, yeah. I didn't go back to Oklahoma City for years. I mean, years.
Yeah. Because what?
I didn't want to. I'd been there when it mattered.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the bombing investigation, after we arrested McVeigh, they sent me out to Kingman, Arizona to get the other guy, Michael Fortier. And I never came back. I did Iran Contra after that. And we had a meeting of all the Iran Contra people in Oklahoma City. They all went to the museum. I didn't go. I didn't want to.
There had to be something that was,
I don't know.
That was keeping you from there.
I really don't know. I just had I wasn't afraid to go. Crap, I commanded the damn thing. It was just that I didn't want to go. I don't know why I didn't want to go. And NBC here in Fort Worth talked to me for years about doing a special and going up and touring it with them and videoing it. So I kept saying, I don't want to do that. And so they went to Debbie, and so we did it naturally.
The wife says you're going. Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And you explained it to me. And so we toured it, and they filmed it. they filmed the conversation that she and I had together, and it's pretty good. It won an Emmy, as a matter of fact, because
That's
of her.
amazing.
She's pretty.
Well, and
pretty
that's
girl.
kind of it's a legacy event for you. I
Well,
mean, there's a lot of stuff you've done, obviously, but that's a pretty significant thing. At least it is so recent that even younger folks know about that.
Did you know every student in the public schools in Oklahoma City has to tour that museum? They make them all do it.
Oh, that's smart.
Isn't that smart?
I think it is smart.
I think it's a really cool event. I didn't learn anything clearly, but it was fun for me. My grandchildren loved it. My wife actually said, "I've learned some things I didn't know before." So,
well,
it's not a good deal to be married to me. I mean, it's really not. I'll tell you an anecdote here. This is after I left the FBI. I was doing Tiger Woods security. And she and I had to go to Kinko's one day. And remember, they used to have the newspaper boxes out front, had the front page.
Yeah.
So we pulled up in front of Kinko's, and the headlines, FBI reveals tunnel under Russian embassy. I said, why in the hell do we talk about that? I was really upset. She said, what do you know about that? I said, I dug it. That was one of the things I did when I left the team is I went over and ran that program. And so they just don't know who we are.
Yeah.
They really don't.
Well, I think in my experience too, I know your wife is curious and protective, as are any wives that are in that kind of environment. And I used to come home and get questions, and there was an understanding that you're going to answer as much as is reasonable.
Yeah.
To an extent that you're not going to upset them or make them try to make some kind of demand of you that you know you can't
no, I never got that.
Right. So I know you didn't, but that's why. It's because she only knew 80% of kind of what's going on and then is learning after the fact, which is healthy.
Like you have to marry the right woman.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's extremely important. We were dating and, we were just dating. We weren't married yet. And I got a notice to deploy. And when you deploy a unit like that, so you're busy.
Yep.
You got to talk to intel people, medical people. I mean, everybody. And so we're driving out to Andrews where our planes were. And I'm on the phone talking to everybody. So we get there and I get out of the truck and I walk through the gate and get a salute. And I walk up the ramp of a C-141. I flew away and was gone for a long time. So when I came back, she picked me up at the airport. And she said, by the way, you didn't tell me goodbye? You didn't kiss me? You didn't tell me you loved me? She said, I could have driven you to the airport naked. You would not have noticed this. If you drew, I would have noticed that. And then I said, you got to pick me up like that too. And she said, good luck on that. I mean, that's the kind of people, that's the kind of woman you hope you would find.
Yeah.
After the bombing in Oklahoma, McVeigh's supporters tried to kill our family, and the FBI intercepted some of them, and they didn't. Obviously, I'm here. They weren't successful, and that was pretty severe. That was pretty intense, and we know they're serious because they'd blown up a building, killed 150 people. Of course. So we had to have a meeting with our families. Well, we had 2 boys, 2 girls, and that was pretty intense.
So how do you do that? At that time, you were still actively working.
I was in the
FBI. Things. So, and we've had some of those similar circumstances at different levels, obviously, but it's a fascinating concept that you're basically pulling family members who have no business being put in danger.
Yeah, exactly.
Brought to the table. So how did you handle that? And what was the response of some of the family members when you say, look,
that's a great question.
I've done this. I've put you in danger. I want to warn you of the circumstances. Protect yourself. I'm going to do all I can. But I'm also, when we're done, going to keep doing more.
Oh, yeah.
How does that fly?
Actually, pretty well. The FBI came out and they put extra security in our house. Our daughters had little wafers on their collars. They hit that, and that activated the police and the FBI to come. And that sounds pretty sophisticated. It's not. The only thing it would show would be time of death.
It's a panic button.
Yeah, time of death. There's ours. We told them what we're going to do. We switched from Labrador Retrievers to Rottweilers. for protection dogs. The Rotties went in the car with my daughters wherever they went. The school knew all about it. But there's just so much you can do.
Right.
Again, my wife, in the meeting we had with the kids, she said, we're not hiding these guys. We got guns. You're going to go to prom. You're going to go to your soccer games. You're going to play baseball. You're going to do all your things. We're not changing anything.
How did they feel about that?
They were okay.
Kids are sort of naive.
Yeah, and they're kind of bulletproof.
Yeah.
They're young and stupid.
Right. But your wife, I'm impressed.
Oh, yeah, I was too. Yeah, she said, we're not hiding these. Matter of fact, she said, we're not hiding these bastards. They want to bring it, bring it. Every April 19th of that week, we went into hiding. I took the kids, my family, and my father. We went away to a secret place and just stayed for a week because that's kind of the hallmark of that movement, because it's the 20th is Hitler's birthday. April 19th is, you know what April 19th is all about.
Yeah.
So I think they handled it really well. I mean, I really do.
Even the extended family, or was there?
We didn't know
these guys that you're dealing with are somewhat sophisticated.
Yes.
So that's really the concern in our industry anyway. If, you protect yourself to a reasonable degree from a dumbass who's going to do something that isn't going to be a kamikaze style attack, but otherwise.
Yeah, obviously, you have experience with this. I figured I was going to get in a gunfight every day. I went out the door. I figured, they may come today, and so I was pretty well protected. When I would take my daughter to a soccer game or kids out someplace, I had a hand grenade in each pocket. Browning high power, which is my favorite gun, with me, and a M4 in my car. So we were ready. But even then, I mean,
if you weren't surprised, you were ready. You're trying to live life. I mean, that's the point, right?
Well, true, and that's what that was Debbie's point. These kids deserve to go to prom. They deserve to go to their soccer games. They deserve to have a life. One little boy came to our house one night to bring. He had a crush on my oldest daughter, and she'd had a big time soccer game and scored a bunch of goals and whatever. And so he brought her a coronation. She went to South Lake Carroll, and I bought her, I think, a yellow and white coronation. And he goes up to the front porch and puts it on the front porch. 30 seconds later, he was laying across the hood of a police car, terrified. And Debbie went out the door and he said, "Mrs. Coulson, help me." So I went out and talked to the cops about it, said he's okay. So, I mean, there was some, one of the things that you have to cultivate in life is a sense of humor. When we were developing the team, the director had a psychiatrist named David Soskas come meet with me. And he came to see me. He said, "You're going to be part of the history of our country." I said, "Hope not." That's generally a bad thing. And then he said, "What's the first personality character trait you're looking for?" I said, "Sense of humor." Because the things we're going to be doing, people are going to die. He said, "Danny, it's like mass humor. It's the same thing." And I think they kind of adopted that. They still don't really know who we are. I came home I think I was out doing the security for Tiger Woods someplace, and I came home, and my daughter's home from college, and I go into the kitchen, throw my stuff down, and I said, "Where's Jessie?" And Debbie said, "Oh, she's in the family. She's watching a movie about you." So, okay. So I went into the family room, and there was a documentary done about one of the ops I did, and there's a guy playing me. And Jessie looked at me and said, "I don't know who in the hell you are." I said, "I'm the guy that did your homework with you. That's all you need to know."
Yeah, and that guy's not nearly as much of a smartass as you.
No, and he's better looking. They don't typecast. Thank God.
And we talked to Clay Alexander, who was one of the ATF guys that got shot in the Koresh.
Oh yeah,
compound. And I know that we've talked about that disaster too. But he, I can't remember exactly how he says. I wish I could quote it better. But he talked about how they weren't going to get overtime. They knew it was a setup. They're being made to go. And, he gets there and they start getting fired at. And he says the guy next to him was like, "And we're not getting overtime."
Oh my gosh,
this.
That's funny.
That's almost the type of, that sense of humor is so rare. because you could look at every situation as ominous and life-threatening, and you would be so stressed out, you'd be dead in a minute.
Well, in your job, every day you went to work, you could die.
Yeah. But so you have to have a little bit of, but I think that's why there's such a community in that type of respect,
right.
because they can understand where in any other context, it would be the most politically incorrect thing to ever say to anyone else, but they have a different level of understanding because of the
Let
type
me
of
give you
work
an example. On this recon we did at CSA, that's pretty intense because they're there to kill you.
Yeah.
And we patrolled in, got it done, and patrolled out. And we actually had to go so far, we patrolled off our map. So we're going through these fields. I knew generally where I had to go. And so we're going through these fields. And one of my operators, now this is a guy's HRT operator. They're pretty tough. And he comes by and said, "Doc, there are cattle in there." I said, "I know." He said, "There's a bull over there." I said, "Don't worry. They can't see in the dark." He went, "Oh, thank God." So we keep going, and we finally get picked up. We put infrared beams up, and the pickup guys found us. And so we're in the van going back, and we're riding along and kind of breaking tension a little bit. So the same operator said, "I did not know that cattle cannot see in the dark." I said, "Oh, they see just fine." He said, "You lied to us?" And the sniper leader said, "He lies to us all the time. Remember, he said this is going to be a lot of fun." He said, "It ain't fun at all." I mean, that's the same thing the ATF guy said to you or in your interview, is that, and that's just the way you look at life.
Right. And that was at death's door practically. And it was for that guy. He's passed away.
Yeah. You know, a good friend of mine was on that roof too, Bill Buford, ATF agent. He did the CSA raid with me.
Really?
We were very close friends, yes. Maybe the best agent I've ever known.
I need to introduce you to Clay. I think that'd be a cool conversation just to talk about that particular op, because, I mean, he pulls no punches either. I mean, it was a giant screw job. Everybody knew it, and even he knew it. But, I mean, you're being commanded to go do this. I mean, it was bizarre.
That was criminal.
Yeah.
I'd have fired every one of those guys.
Yeah.
You know, the new ATF director, I can't think of his name now. He was one of the planners of that op.
Was he really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe he learned a whole lot from that experience.
Well, he should have learned. He should have retired. Should have left.
Yeah, maybe. So you then retired. You wrote a book, No Heroes, right? That's still out. They did a movie on that already?
Well, we're trying to. We're
Still
having a little bit of a dispute. Mark Warburg wanted to do it.
Okay.
And Peter Berg, both of them wanted to do it. And my co-author has put some impediments.
Roadblocks.
Yeah. Roadblock. That's a better word.
Well, now Mark Wahlberg's almost too old for you now, you know? Eventually.
I was 40.
Huh?
I was 40 at the time.
I know. Mark Wahlberg's like my age.
Is he really?
Yeah. I mean, he's a stud still. He would do fine. I'm just being a little facetious, but, you know, eventually, like all of us get old, even the actors
to play
a guy
named Max Ryan to do it, who I had to go meet with him, and he's a good guy.
Anything like Jack Ryan?
No, I'm not Jack. This is Max. He's fun. You know, I actually know Mark Wahlberg.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, tell him I said hello.
Columbia,
Never met that guy.
Security work for them.
Oh, through the PGA deal,
he came out to our golf course and wanted to be there, and I wouldn't let him be without us, so we put skirt on. He was doing that movie down there, The Fifth Mile or something like that. It was a adventure thing he did where, you know, everybody got shot and whatever, which is always a bad thing.
I don't know that one necessarily, but yeah, he's great. That would be great. I'd love to see that.
Well,
I know that stuff takes forever plus 10 years. So
it really does. It's almost, and you know, when you do it, I had to go to Hollywood and interview a bunch of people, and they'd ask me like these ridiculous questions. How many of you guys are gay? I said, no, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they want
don't ask, don't tell environment first that you came up in, right?
Exactly. So I don't care, but it doesn't matter. But they just,
so that's an interesting thing.
How many women are on the HRT? I said same number in Major League Baseball. Exact same number, 0.
Okay, so that's an interesting idea that I've also experienced too, because in my case, when we're talking Hollywood stuff, we had a lot of white folks over here and a lot of African-American folks over here. And it was the way it was. The dynamic was what it was. It
Yes,
wasn't
exactly.
intentional.
Exactly.
But a lot of the discussions come into play, like maybe we can make this FBI person black and we can make this
I
so
know.
that it's a little bit. And look, I know Hollywood's going to bend the truth to make a good story.
Yeah.
But at some point too, you make it so unrealistic. It's interesting to hear taking a nonfiction story and trying to fit it into a non-historical environment, instead of
they do the same thing with the Bible stories. They changed those.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Well, Jesus looks like this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
Well, I tell you, with the HRT, we had American Indians, Hispanics, and Black people on the team. So we were good. I kept, when we went through selection, I said, let there be some Puerto Rican guys that can pass this course. Let there be
Yeah.
And
you want them to, right?
You want them to, and you need them.
Yeah.
Because everything we do is not tactical. You want to look like America. And we came out like that. I mean, I didn't pick them because of that.
Well, and I think culturally it's important too to just have a breadth of input, right?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about that.
So how do you do that with something that refined? First of all, interestingly, if you took the populace and then all of a sudden you have an HRT team of 20 people and all of a sudden 10 of them are black and you got 6 women or whatever, you're already going the other way.
Well, but women did go through selection.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of them got through the course, named Marianne Sullivan, and she got through it. She didn't pass it, but she did everything everybody else did.
Well, that was my other question. There was not a modified standard.
Hell no.
Right.
No. I was asked that. Are you going to modify the standard? I said, yeah, when you modify the threat.
Right.
She did wonderful. I mean, I hired her. She came on the staff as administrator.
That's awesome.
And she worked undercover for me. When we went out after these groups, I'd send her out to do recons and things and handle logistics. And she was a very attractive woman, blonde.
Effective.
Very effective against that group. Interesting story. Her husband went through selection, Gen 2. And he didn't do well at all. He did not do well. Matter of fact, he crapped out on us on the double running of the obstacle course. He just crapped out. So we had to take him to the hospital. I had to pack his big butt up and take him to the hospital. And I go up to see him because the commander always has to check on his troops. So I'm walking down the hall. And I hear Marianne screaming at him down the hall. I told you weren't ready. I've been through this. I mean, she was wearing him out. And I came and walked in the door. He said, Commander, would you get my wife out of here? I said, she's your wife, she's not my wife. Yeah. And she said, I'm leaving. So he went through selection again, then passed. He did pass it second time.
Fantastic.
He listened to his wife because she knew how hard it was.
I find that fascinating too, a concept. And we've done the same thing, I took the idea from what the police department did, which is, you have your standard to get on and it's a modified standard and then they never test again.
No, I know.
So we do an across the board standard, no age differential, no sex differential, because again, the job is the job is the job. If the job doesn't require that you be able to drag a 160-pound body somewhere, fine, we can modify it because you're going to be the one that gets to pull 70 pounds or whatever. That's fine, but that's not what life is. But
we don't do that.
But you also, and I'm hyper conscious as anyone else about trying to be inclusive and respectful of other people. But have you ever run across any political animosity, or not necessarily strictly political, but obviously it is a political issue within within the FBI or even after the fact, any pushback for any of that?
No.
Because other than your Hollywood interview, other than
the Hollywood interview, yeah. No, after we started operating, they knew what our mission was. And the director of the FBI used to come see me all the time. He loved to come down and visit us. The deputy director came down. The deputy assistant director came down. And they watched what we do. And, if you're going to have to swim and then take a caving ladder and hook it on to a boat and climb out of the ocean on a caving ladder, you got to have a lot of upper body strength. So they knew what we did. They knew what our mission was doing. Couple of them, John Otto was second down the chain of command. He came down to see me one time and he's sitting in my office and he came down probably once a month. because he liked to wash us. And he hears a dog barking. He said, "What was that?" I said, "What was what?" "I hear a dog barking." I said, "I don't hear a dog barking." Because,
You had too many birthdays.
well, no, I had dogs. I started the dog program and didn't get approval for it because I wanted dogs. So he said, "You started this dog program." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." He said, "I haven't approved it yet." I said, "Yeah, but you will." and then we go out into the cage area where we keep all our gear, and there's like 9 refrigerators lined up against the wall. And he said, "Did I pay for those?" I said, "Yes, sir, you did." He said, "Why do you need them?" I said, "We keep batteries in there because you store your batteries cold." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yes." He goes and opens one. It's full of Budweiser. And he said, "When did Budweiser start making batteries?" I said, "Today." So he said, "Well, bring me a Budweiser. Let's go in your office and talk about it." I mean, they liked us because they knew that we're going to bail them out of bad situations. So they hoped we would.
Yeah.
And I hope we would. But yeah, we had really good sport.
Did they ever modify or not modify? Did they ever come up with training programs for people who had specific limitations? Like when you brought up, like, you had a lot, you had African Americans who would have ordinarily passed everything else except they had no experience in swimming. Was there a training program where
we should have done that? I mean, when you're putting together a team like that and you're under time constraints, I got that thing certified in 10 months.
Oh yeah.
From selection to certification.
Well, I didn't mean it in a critical way. First of all, I know you're putting that together, I just wonder long term how advantageous that might be to take more people through the experience like you did with your rappel guy.
Yeah.
To where they actually had an opportunity to experience some of these things so that when they did come to test,
I think that was a shortcoming we had, and I think it was because of overload. We had to get ready and go to war, essentially.
Right.
And we should have done that. I mean, probably what we should have done is taken some of those people that just could do everything but swim. We should have done that. I will give you that for sure. We would have gotten some really good people.
Yeah.
Crap, I almost didn't pass the swimming. I mean, I struggled with that. I worked really hard on that. But yeah, we should have done it. We didn't. Too busy.
I was just curious. I mean, and I didn't mean even then. I just meant after the fact, because it seems like you could kind of do more with the pool of people.
They're given the requirements and get ready or not.
And people know what it is now. So they have an opportunity also to prepare, knowing that if that's my goal, I'm going to get in the FBI. It's almost like the Secret Service folks that say, I want to work the PPD. They know what's required going into it. So it gives them an opportunity to go find the training or get prepared.
No, I think that's right. Also, it's kind of like, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, this is hard. I mean, if you look at what less than 1% of people in the FBI make HRT, it's pretty tough.
Of course.
So get ready for it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, once you know in advance. I mean, it was just, I guess it had to be a lot different then because it was, like you said, the seat of your pants. You put
I have no idea. I had no idea what I was doing, as a matter of fact, most of the time. It's called, you know what a WAG is? It's called a wild ass guess. And that's the way I ran my team. Just kind of figured it out. Plus, you know what? When you have people that talented, they kind of make it work. An example, I'm walking through the command post at the Oklahoma bombing. And an agent who I didn't know walked up to me and said, "Boss, why are you so calm? Everybody's crazy here. You're so calm." I said, "I don't have to do anything. I'm not going to solve this case. I'm going to get you assets, let you solve it. So it's on you. It's not on me." He said, "I've never heard that before."
Yeah.
I said, "It's true.
It is on you, but you're going to let them do it."
Yeah.
And so I think that's missing in a lot of leadership these days anyway, because it's difficult for people to same scenario as the physically fit, dominant type people, especially when you get into law enforcement type things where you're testing and all those, selection process is either, a big brother type of thing, or you're testing up the chain, and then you lose track of the fact that it's really the people that need to do the work, and they're only going to follow you if you're empowering them to allow them to make reasonable mistakes and things like that. I think it's missing a lot of the time.
No, I think it is too. I think there are very few leaders in the world that are worth anything. I think most of them are terrible. I'll give you an anecdote here. Do you know how many operations I planned the whole time I commanded that team?
I'm going to say zero. All right, look at that.
I didn't plan one. What you do, you define the mission and you allocate resources and you said, you plan it. I'm not going to do it. And here's the reason for it. If I plan it, my ego is so big, I know it's a perfect plan. Think about it. If they plan it, I can critique it. And so I would have the assault leader make the plan and come meet with me. We'd sit down and say, what about this? Oh, I forgot about that. And so it's a much better product if the commander doesn't plan, but let his people plan.
Right.
But that being said, the commander has to know how to do their job.
Of course.
Because you don't know if you're getting a good plan or not.
Right. And you have to know how to do it. I mean, I know you're underselling it, but you're right. If you took a plan, send it to your subordinates, they're less likely to pick it apart.
Oh, of course they are.
So, but you do it the other way around and you're almost a communal effort.
It becomes like participatory management. Remember that old management style they taught in the schools years ago?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like that. And I think that's very healthy. And, I mean, the guy that planned the CSA raid, whew, how hard was that? That was tough. We had to swim in, boat in, march in. Some people came in by helicopter. So it's a lot of balls in there to keep going.
Yeah.
He did a phenomenal job.
A lot of balls is right.
Yeah, well, you may lose them.
So you've done a whole lot since. I mean, you've been retired for, 20...
It's 97 years. 1997 I retired.
Okay. Yeah, so almost 30 years.
Yeah, I'm an old guy.
30 years, yeah. So what are you doing now? I mean, you're a young chap. What are you up to?
A lot. I'm doing expert witness testimony. Cinemark Theaters was one of my clients. I did surveys of their theaters and developed their security program.
Following the active shooter events.
A lot of it was active shooter. Some was just plain security, like money and stuff. And then the Aurora, Colorado movie theater was attacked. Remember the Batman shooting?
Yeah.
So their lawyers came to me and said, we want you to be the expert witness. So I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. And the lawyer said, why? I said, I don't like lawyers. I don't work with you. And he said, we need you to do it. So I did it and I charged them peanuts. The guy that was on the other side of me who I beat the crap out of, he charged like 3 times what I charged. So I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
And since then I've done 31 major cases like that.
Oh, that's
I did the Mandalay Bay. I did the Cinemark. I'm sorry, the what is that? Security company over in Dallas. We did a lawsuit over there, and we got a $7 billion judgment. So my fees went up again quite a bit.
Starting to take points instead of a fee.
You can't. Unfortunately, you can't take a piece of it.
Why not?
Law didn't allow you to do it. You can take.
The law won't allow you? Your fee is your fee. I take a percentage.
You can't. They won't let you because they think it'll bias your opinion.
Interesting.
So,
I mean, I can see where ethically that's the case, but I didn't know there was
you
legal.
can't do it.
Yeah.
No, I'd like to. I would have made.
Well, you also risk making nothing.
No, you get fees.
I know, but I'm saying
it's true.
Because I've done some of the expert witness stuff. You have your fee, and I think in principle you have the right idea. You charge what you charge, but it's a big case, small case.
Yeah.
But if you took points based on how it comes, then you only have a good faith effort to make it work, or you make nothing. Also,
I agree with you. The courts unfortunately doesn't agree with either one of us.
That's good.
No. I mean, I'm a predator now. I won't even look at a document unless they give me a lot of money.
Yeah.
That sounds like I'm bragging. It just happened to be true.
Oh, that's just entrepreneurial progress, because otherwise you'd be 10 times more busy.
And said, we want you to look at a case. I said, send me $10,000 and I'll look at it. That sounds kind of arrogant, but that's the way it is.
Well, when people get too busy to do any of their work justice, that's when you raise your rates.
Well, I'll tell you this too. No one has ever raised their eyebrows when I give them a fee. First of all, I'm not lost. I'm not very good at this. Everybody else is really bad. It's like Among the Blind, the One-Eyed is King. I mean, I've had one guy I was against. He was a mystery shopper. That was his expertise, to testify on the security program for a company. So there's some terrible guys out there, and And a lot of them will change their opinion to match the theory of the prosecution or defense. And I don't do that. They can send me a case, and if I like it, I'll take it. And I've turned down a lot of cases. I did one in Maryland where there was a murder in a newspaper office, and I said I don't want to take it. And so they flew out and met with me, and they brought all the data. I said, I'll do this one. Yeah, this is a good case. So it makes it easier for me because I totally believe in what I'm saying.
Right. You can discern.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's still, have you had a lot of conflicts? I know I've been in some of those cases where, if you're working for someone who is really fighting to get their point across, you know how attorneys work.
Oh, yeah.
You're a third party. You are a completely unbiased observer. So it's up to them to slant whatever you say. But
and
what you say has to be factual and something that you believe, not even something you believe. It's literally factual, right?
Well, yeah, and I do believe in it. I'll tell you an interesting story. I did a case over in Dallas. It was a big, big case. And the opposing counsel that interviewed me or deposed me for like 9 hours. He knew everything I was going to say. And so I'm the last witness in the trial, and the guy comes up. I give my testimony, and the other side comes up and said, Mr. Coulson, you were the security director for the PGA Tour. I said, yes, sir, I was. He said, did you take care of Tiger Woods? I said, yes, I did. He said, you couldn't keep Tiger Woods out of trouble. How do you expect us to keep our employee out of trouble? I said, counsel, Tiger Woods didn't stab my client to death. Your client stabbed my client to death. He went, oh, no. I wish I didn't ask that question.
You forgot you were a smart law enforcement guy.
I'm not smart either. But I think that a lot of people get intimidated by confrontation. I love confrontation. I mean, on the PGA Tour, you confront people every day, all day long. In my business in the FBI, everything was a confrontation. Sometimes they shot at you.
Yeah. So, but that's different confrontation because I do a lot better in physical confrontation or, telling someone this is how it is, blah, blah, blah. But I have a lot more difficulty than you do when it comes I've noticed whether it's expert witness testimony or going to a speaking engagement, which we've done together. We've done speaking engagements, and I'm sitting there like, okay, I got to use the restroom again. I haven't eaten in 7 hours. And you're like, and I'm saying, what are you going to say? And you're like, I don't know. I'm just going to go up there and start talking. I'm like, man, there's something beautiful about this, but I don't know if I'm more stressed or less stressed. That means I got to do it all or what?
Debbie will go with me with speeches and things sometimes. She said, what are you going to talk about? I said, I don't know.
It's amazing.
Or she'll do it TV. Like Eric Shawn from Fox called me one day and said, can you do my show Sunday? I said, yeah. What are you going to talk about? He said, I don't know. Does it matter? I said, no. Okay. So Debbie and I go to the TV studio. She says, what are you going to talk about? I said, I don't know. Whatever they ask me. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all.
That's a superpower, though. That's a superpower.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, what it is, Tegan, I'm old. I've seen a lot of the world, more than most people have. And I don't think they're going to surprise me with anything. I actually don't think they are. So, game on.
I love it. I think it's great. It is really an appreciable skill. And like I said, I can tell you as a living example, I can go and do an enforcement action and feel comfortable. Yeah. And then when I get on a witness stand or even sometimes in a depot, depending on who's doing it, even the stress knowing that I'm about to have to answer a question that is counterintuitive as to what my client is trying to accomplish.
It's okay. And always tell the truth.
I know.
You do.
It is. I know. But it doesn't mean I don't get stressed and anxious because I'm like, man, they're asking the question you didn't want me to answer, but I'm about to answer
I'll tell you another one I did. This is a newspaper case. The lawyers try to ask you a question till you can't give them an answer, make you look stupid. So the lawyer pulled out a loose and was asking me about different people. And he asked me about some guy, John Smith. I said, I don't know who that is. And he said, you don't know who that is? I said, counsel, I've recovered 300 hostages. I don't know the name of a single one of them. Doesn't matter. And he went, oh, shit, I wish I asked that question. So maybe I think one of the things that if you're not very smart, you don't get scared of much. You're not afraid. And I think that's me. I'm not that smart.
You always claim naivety. It's not that. No,
that's really the way I feel about it. I've had a lot of experiences. God gave me many adventures. And he basically, the way I looked at it is he put me with people better than me so I didn't screw them up, and put me with the woman who tolerated. So,
Well, and you were smart enough to allow them to do what they do best. I think those are the most successful people. You have to be smart enough to know how to give the proper feedback.
Well, you have to
and
be smart enough
empower
to know
them.
when to get out of the way.
Yeah,
And
that's
think
good.
I do have that as an attribute.
So what else are you doing? That's the last I know.
No, we're getting ready to build a factory that makes 40mm grenades. We're starting that right now.
So you partner with a lot of different things right now.
Yeah.
Because again, you get to pick and choose different projects.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I carried a M79 grenade launcher in the FBI, so I have a little bit of experience with them.
Good Lord.
So, yeah, I'm excited. I met with an investor just before he came over here. So he wants to do it. And then he was talking to me about another project. I said, well, let me do that. You don't want to do that. You're going the wrong direction. So we'll see.
Well, give him the right advice.
I will.
Because it's not too long. You're going to hit 120 and you're going to start running out of projects if you keep giving them away. So you can't do that.
No, I'm not giving them away. They're paying me.
I know. I know I admire you don't slow down.
Well, I think I think God put you here to work. And when you stop working, I think he takes you away. My dad built dairies till he was like in his late 80s. As soon as he quit building dairies, he died. I'm enjoying life. I have a great wife. I have a great life. I'm healthy. I got 8 grandchildren that keep me busy. And I'm busy enough and making enough money I can do what I want to do.
Do you think technology is going to get in your way before you're done working on stuff like this?
I don't think so. I think it'll just be a tool. We have to learn how to use it. I don't think AI is going to take my place assessing a security operation.
No, yeah.
I don't think so. It may. Maybe I'm naive about that, but I don't think so. I think it'll just help me.
Yeah, and I feel sometimes too. And like, hey, how do you turn your watch on silent? I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't need to know that.
Sometimes you do.
No, I don't. I'll ask my daughter. Or I'll ask Debbie. Or I'll ask him.
Do you think it's going to make the newer generation of incoming law enforcement or professionals in general less intelligent? Or
I think it'll make them less effective. The FBI went through this program of hiring a lot of computer people, totally screwed up the agency. Because I admire computer people, but they can't talk to anybody. How do you find people? You ask somebody where they are. I've arrested a lot of fugitives, and probably not as many as you, but a lot. Oh. And people ask me all the time, how do you find fugitives? I said, well, you ask enough people, somebody will tell you where he is, or talk to his mother-in-law. That's how you catch fugitives. Yeah. And I think that we rely too much on text messages.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these agents don't know how to talk to anybody.
That's true.
And some of the cops are the same way.
Yeah. And I know there was something to be said about, the gumshoe style of investigation and stuff. However, man, look at all the murders that were just being solved instantaneously once.
Well, yeah, DNA
some of the
other and all that stuff, that helps. But bottom line, somebody's got to talk to somebody.
Yeah, you need kind of both aspects.
Of course, that's why I said I think we have more tools than we've ever had before. I think the difference is I think we're losing our ability to communicate. And I think sometimes we rely too much on tools and not enough on interpersonal relationships.
I would totally agree with that.
I knew you would.
I don't know how you fix that. But and sometimes it is what it is, and we can be the old man saying, "Well, you're just an old man," and and I can't deny that either. I'm an old man, and I know this would be something that an old man would have told me when I was 24, and I'd have said, "You're an old man." But
I think that's true.
I think there's a transitional period right now where
I think law enforcement, at least with the bigger agencies, is they understand trends. And I think that I think they will. I think they'll learn how to meld the two, where you have to be a good communicator. You have to be able to talk, but you got to learn how to turn your cell phone off.
Yeah.
So
I certainly hope so. And maybe, I don't know how old your son is, but getting out in just in the nick of time is during a time of kind of desperation for law enforcement.
Oh,
help
it's terrible.
is kind of the key there.
I was really worried about him. He's a canine officer, and I was glad because, excuse me, the officers coming onto the force out in the West Coast are terrible.
Yeah.
He went on a deal once. He's on patrol, and he gets a robbery in progress. Pulls in a shopping center, 2 cops there, and he says, what do we got? He said, oh, we've got a robbery of that 7-Eleven right there. He said, do we have a description? Let's go find the guy. And he said, well, he's standing right there. The guy was still in the shopping center.
They're looking at him from their cars.
Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord.
And Doc said, well, let's go get him. He said, no, we're waiting for the SWAT team. Doc said, no, we're not.
Oh, my God.
He went over and he grabbed his rifle out of the car and he confronted the guy, and the guy ran into a recycling center, had hostages. So I said, went after him, and the guy ran out the back door and he gets in a chase. The other cops don't help him at all. Wow. They stand there and leave him by himself. Chases the guy. The guy, he starts to catch him. And the guy turns around. He's got a Rambo knife. Like, I've seen it. It's like that big. Came at him like that and boom, 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 with a rifle and put him down. But nobody helped him.
That's indignant.
Isn't that terrible?
That's ridiculous.
I mean, I don't get it.
I mean, that's not as wrong as some of the wrong things we've seen. That's not even wrong. I mean, that's just...
They shouldn't be.
They're the ones in the wrong too. But if it's an interpretation of what your supervisors required or whatever, and you see an officer that's put himself in a situation where you have to help, you have to help. I mean, that should be common sense.
That's you. But I think there's a lot of people out there that's not like them.
Oh, I know there are, and that's what I mean. It's frustrating to watch that whole industry, so to speak, kind of take its licks, because some of it is justified, and it has to be righted. And I know.
Well, I think if you want my view of it,
yeah,
I think a lot of it comes from the defund the police movement. I think you remember a year or so ago, a officer during a riot used a beanbag that was out of date. He got indicted. He and like 5 other guys, I think 5 or 6 officers got indicted. Now you know
for
what that
assault?
does? Huh?
For assault?
Yeah. Negligent something. And ultimately, they dismissed it. But can you imagine that? So if you think about it, Tegan, this is what bothers me about it, is that if you want to never have a problem, never do anything. You don't get in trouble for not doing anything.
Yeah.
In law enforcement, you don't get in trouble for not doing your job.
I even saw that back in my day.
I'm sure you did.
Which, you have the guys that park under the tree, and you have the go-getters that got in trouble a lot.
Who were doing their job.
And there were, I will concede this too, there were also go-getters who did stuff that they had no damn business doing, that ended up having to shoot somebody because they put themselves in a disadvantageous position. But there were people that worked hard and made honest mistakes that were not necessarily, putting somebody in a grave. That, yes, you get in trouble. You run over a curb in a car trying to be aggressive or whatever to catch a guy or whatever it is. I'm talking about reasonable mistakes that were made. And again, if you're sitting under a tree reading the paper, then
you don't get in trouble.
Your car's never going to get wrecked and whatever. So you let somebody else go.
You'll
get
make
the
a lot.
guys.
You'll make money. Mm-hmm. Never lose. Never get fired. Never get indicted. Oh, I know. I went through that too. Let me tell you. The best agents I knew were agents who would push the legal envelope and not cross the line. They were the best people I ever worked with.
Yeah. Well, that's creative thinking. I mean, that's maybe what people are missing. Maybe because you've got, maybe that's what technology is doing. I mean, the fact that you can look down and grab the answer instead of having to spend an inordinate amount of time to go chase it down is part of the problem, that you have to think creatively in order to come up with solutions that will work and still stay within bounds.
No,
that's not an easy task, and it's sometimes is an innate ability for some people.
Yeah, and generally the smarter guys do it, and women.
Yeah, well, depends on smarts. Again, there's a difference. You take the test, you're a whatever cop, federal agent, whatever, and you take a test to do this, or you have the street smarts. And I know you've seen the differences between those.
Oh my God, yes.
And you kind of need both, really. But
I think street force that's that savvy.
Yeah.
That some of the guys had.
For sure necessary. Oh, well, that's a whole nother
story.
That's a whole nother tunnel too. We're not going to go down that tunnel, but man, I'm proud to have you as a friend. I appreciate you coming out to
me
burn
too.
time.
Likewise.
So,
I've had fun today. I hope you have.
You have anything else to add? Anything else that's super fun you want to announce?
No. Maybe down the road. I got a couple of things percolating.
Okay, cool.
Were you familiar with that thing in Pakistan where they deposed the prime minister?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, they had a coup and they deposed him. The Pakistani people came to me and get me to help with it.
Oh my God!
I said, "Okay, I'll help you. I ain't going to Pakistan."
Can we do this on Zoom?
I did. Actually, I wrote all their legal arguments for it, so it worked. So we got
I love it.
It's
well,
fun.
It's an exciting life, man. Thanks for letting us take a glimpse into.
No, thank you. I love your new place. This is awesome.
Thank you. I'm trying to do some fun projects and make a difference at the same time. But I mean, it's stories like this I think are interesting for people to take and
hope I didn't talk too much.
I hope you talk too much. That's the point of this. I don't want to be doing the talking.
Well,
you don't want to hear listen to me.
I think I have a saying: you learn more by listening than you do by talking. So I should have listened maybe a little bit more today.
Hey, start a podcast.
No.
That's the greatest way to learn.
I don't have any time for that.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next time.
What's it take? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Success around the sandbox with second grade rules. A confident fake to make you do what they want when they won't pay the fool. A diplomatic face is the one to see you through. And don't let those bigots take you off your game, but just to let them loose. You sit here in the front.